Welcome to Backstage Pass. I'm Tara, and my guest today is Indi Hartwell. Welcome.
Thank you. It's cold here.
It is, yes. It's definitely not Australian weather, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But we have small bugs here and small snakes.
Okay.
We don't have
the big bugs and the big snakes and the crocodiles and all that.
Exactly. Yeah, I've seen those videos.
I live in Florida now. We got alligators.
Oh yeah, I used to live in Florida as well, and we had like a canal in the backyard, and they would just come up to the pool.
Same. Yeah.
It's wild. The
is.
first time I was like, what is that in the backyard and why is it here?
Yeah, it's scary.
So it's cool seeing all those things. But welcome. I'm glad you're here today.
Thank you.
Joining us for Fan Jam 4. So it's been great to interact with the fans.
Yes.
And we're really happy that you're here. So I just want to talk a couple of questions. You recently were released from WWE. And I know that came as quite a shock to you.
Yeah.
How did that feel when you first heard the news?
Like you said, it definitely surprised me, but I would say that it lit a smoke up my butt to kind of, I think people can get a little bit comfortable or complacent, and I think I was a bit guilty of that. So this has been good to kind of like get my motivation up again and get excited, because the wrestling world these days, it's like there's so much opportunity. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Now, I had read somewhere that you said you were going to use that 90-day non-compete period to, do some reflection, improvements. Like, what kinds of things have you been doing during this period?
So, obviously, like, my workouts have been, like, fueled by so much passion now. Not that they weren't before, but like I said, I have this, like, fire lit within me. I started running as well, just to take up another hobby that I hate running, by the way, but I do it just because I hate it, and also to get my cardio up, because I've been a tag team wrestler for most of my career, and now I'm most likely going to be by myself. So it's different. I can't tag out when I get tired now.
That's true. You've got the whole thing.
Exactly.
Speaking of where we're going to see you next, so you're going to be at Renegades of Wrestling in Melbourne.
Yeah, so I'm wrestling in Melbourne, which is where I'm from in Australia. And this company, Renegades, it wasn't around back when I was in Australia. It's kind of a new company, but it's run by a promoter who I used to work for. And I'm wrestling a girl over there who I trained with like 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So it's crazy that like we've had different journeys, but she's been really like killing it and improving. So I'm extremely excited.
I was going to say, you've got to be excited to be going back to, your hometown.
Exactly. Wrestling in front of my family. So it's going to be awesome.
And that'll be your first appearance, right? After is that your first?
I actually have something the week before that in Florida. So I'm doing a show for Hatchet Pro Wrestling. I'm wrestling Alicia Fox. So that's pretty cool.
All right. And she's also here today.
She is here today. I'm going to beat her up.
We're hoping to get a few words with her as well. So let's talk a little bit about the differences with wrestling in Australia versus like wrestling in the United States. Like, what are some things you've noticed, like style-wise, promotion-wise?
I mean, wrestling is pretty universal. I would say it's very similar. When I lived in Australia, I would come to America often to wrestle, and the only difference was that I wasn't too familiar with the other girls because I hadn't trained with them. Whereas in Australia, wrestling also isn't as popular, and we don't have a huge population. So shows don't run as often. You may be lucky to wrestle a few times a month, whereas in America, people are wrestling like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's just like more over here, which sucks for the Australian wrestlers, because like they're so talented, but sometimes they just don't get the opportunities.
Right. Yeah, that's got to be a challenge. Just, you're right. There's wrestling promotions literally 7 days a week.
Yeah, here, right. You can really make it your full-time job here as an indie wrestler, but unfortunately in Australia it's not really likely, just because it's not as big.
Well, fortunately, many Australian wrestlers have found their home here, so that's been great.
Yeah.
What are you looking for promotions now as a free agent? What kind of criteria are you looking for? Like, what promotions stand out to you?
I would say what I'm looking for is professionalism. Obviously, coming from WWE, they have the best production in the world. So being part of that, it just looks amazing, and it paints everyone in a good light as well. So I look at those companies that have good production, and there are a lot out there that I've heard of, but I haven't booked any yet. So stay tuned.
I'm sure that you will find your home in many places, for sure. So fans are really excited to see you training with Dexter Lumis.
Oh, yes. They love it.
They really do. That index dynamic that you
Yeah.
all had. It's obvious that you have great chemistry together. Interestingly enough, I interviewed him on Backstage Pass a couple of years ago.
He answered your question?
So yes, and people were really shocked by that because it was when he had been released, and so he did do an interview, and then people said, "Oh my goodness, I've never heard him speak."
What? They never watched the wedding? He spoke at my wedding.
Right. So I guess it was such limited circumstances, but yeah, he was a great. It was great to actually sit down and talk.
Yeah, he's awesome.
With him. So he really, really was. It was great. So that. How did working with him kind of influence you, and what did you enjoy about it?
Oh, I enjoyed everything about it. Maybe not the kissing. No, I'm kidding. It helped my creativity because I thought I wasn't a creative person, but then once we had that storyline going, it helped me come up with so many more things, and he was so fun to work with. Same with like Johnny, Candace, Theory. We just all got along so well in real life that it was so easy to come off with such good chemistry on camera, and it was fun. And I always tried to make him break or laugh. He never did. He never breaks.
Yeah, he definitely stays in character.
Yeah, he's really good.
That's great. Well, you just brought up working with Candace and Johnny and Austin Theory. What was that experience like when you were part of the Way?
It was random at first because I found out that I was working with them by watching NXT. I don't know if you remember the segment, but the segment was that I bought them a TV, and I didn't even know that was happening. Candace had DM'd me on Twitter, and she said, "Oh, just so you know, I think you're we're mentioning you tonight on TV." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And it was so cool because I not grew up watching the indies, but before I got to WWE, I was huge into the indies, keeping up with it, and Johnny and Candace were a huge part of that. So getting to work with them, it taught me so much, and getting to tag with Candace made me more confident in the ring. So I'm just really grateful for my time with them.
That's great. Now you mentioned, you're going to be working as a singles competitor. Are you looking forward to that? Did you prefer being part of a group?
Well, I think, as I said, I spent most of my career as a tag team wrestler, so I'm ready to be on my own because I had short stints of being on my own in NXT, but like I said, it was short. So I'm excited to be by myself and get my confidence up.
Great. What advice could you give to someone who wants to break into the business?
I would say, first of all, you got to find a reputable wrestling school. That's really important. And once you find that school, you just got to be a sponge. You got to just absorb all the information. You got to keep your mouth closed and your ears open. Just be respectful, I think, is the number one thing.
That is definitely great advice. All right, well, lastly, how can fans connect with you?
Okay, good question. So actually, since being released, I started a YouTube channel. So I've been vlogging. I'm actually vlogging today. So if you're watching this video, you'll be able to see a little behind the scenes of this. It's indie wrestling. I upload vlogs pretty much every week. I'm also on Instagram, Indi Hartwell, and Twitter, or X, Indi_Hartwell. Those are pretty much the main things that I post on, but I really am putting a lot of effort into my YouTube now, so I would appreciate if you would check it out and subscribe to me.
Great, awesome. Well, thank you again for taking a few minutes here at Fan Jam 4 to sit down and talk with me. I'm sure we'll be seeing you again.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you.